Check this out. This is the Boss WAZA Tube Amp Expander, and there's not many things this does not do. Tube Amp Expander is a very good name for this unit because we've got a reactive load with very unique resonance and presence settings. There is IR loading, there's inbuilt compression, EQ, delay, and reverb. It's also a power amp so that you can put your amp in the sweet spot and not deafen everybody when you run it through a cabinet. There's a headphone amp. There's the ability to change your amp's channels or functions with a TRS jack. Over on the back, there is an effects loop. So if you've got an amp that does not have an effects loop, you can add one with the WAZA Tube Amp Expander. There's MIDI, and there's 10 selectable onboard rigs that you can select between, where you can set the reactive load settings, the IR settings, the reverb and delay settings, the amp control settings, basically anything you would want to have preset in a particular rig, and switch between them either with the controller or with MIDI. You can also rack mount it with rack mount ears. It can take up to 150 watts, so just about any amp you throw at it. Like I said, there's not many things this amp can't do, but I'm guessing you guys probably want to hear this with a few different amps, a few different IRs, some of the onboard IRs, some of the third-party IRs, and look at some of the functions. So without further ado, let's get straight into that. To get the ball rolling, let's start off with the Soldano Hot Rod 50 Plus. I love this amp. It sounds amazing, but one quirk about it is it has like the worst effects loop design ever. The effects loop is before the EQ controls, but after the gains. So I find it's really fussy if I want to put effects in there. I basically just never use effects with this amp, but I can use the effects loop in the WAZA Expander to do that, and it sounds way better than the Soldano loop in my opinion. So I've got my Eventide H9 sitting in there, and I want to demonstrate basically the way the rigs feature works, as well as the resonance and presence controls, because they are super powerful. And the fact that you can match up cab IRs with different resonance and presence impedance, I think is the thing that really makes this thing stand out for me. So at the moment, the effects loop is out. There's no effects going on. The reverb is all the way down. I'm just merely using this as a reactive load and an IR loader. At the moment, I'm on rig 7 or 8, where I've got an Own Hammer Bogner Ubercab impulse loaded up. This is a straight up sound. This is my STR LJ1. Sounds like this. Now, the first thing that I would do with any guitar sound when I'm recording it is apply a little bit of post EQ, and there's built-in EQ that you can access with the software. What I have done here is applied a little bit of a low and a high cut, and I've also made two very narrow cuts in about the 3 to 4K range and the 5K range. So have a listen to this if you're somebody who's not really used to using close mic IRs, and you're sitting there going, oh, this sounds really harsh. It must be because it's digital. It's not because it's digital, it's because you're listening to a close mic IR, and a lot of the time, somewhere in between that 3 to 5K range, you get a lot of energy, and they're those like ear fatigue frequencies. So check this out. This is using the onboard parametric EQ. Which is awesome. It immediately smooths that out. I should mention as well, I'm running this amp with the master volume on 7. This particular amp, say I've got the master low, I'll compensate by turning the line out up. It sounds a little bit fizzy with the master low. And if I turn that line out, level down a bit, and I get the amp into its sweet spot, which from years of playing this I know is about 7, which normally would be deafening. Which sounds fantastic. I can then chuck my H9 in using the effects loop. Or alternatively, I can use the onboard delay. So that's fantastic. I've got the amp absolutely cooking, and because this can handle up to 150 watts, it has no trouble with a 50 watt head. It's pretty quiet as well, like the fan's not making a lot of noise or anything like that. What I need to show you guys though is how these resonance and presence impedance controls, that's what the Z stands for, or the Z as we say in Australia. I've got the resonance on low. I'll turn the presence on low. So let's have a listen to what the resonance control does with, I'll just leave this EQ on, because I really like the way it sounds with everything smoothed out, especially on like the low chug notes. It really changes the feel and response. You can hear I've also got a bit of the onboard reverb going in there. Let me turn that down. For this particular amp and this particular IR, I think the resonance sounds really good on the high setting. Let's do the same for presence. Presence is set at low. So I just cycled through each of the modes here. The one that I settled on is this high-mid mode with this particular amp and IR. And I think that's where the real power of this particular unit is. When you're using a particular IR and a particular amp, you can use the resonance and presence control there to really like capture the feel of your amp. And I think that's something that a lot of people complain about when they just use like a standard load box, which has like one of these settings that's non-adjustable, and they use it with IRs. They have to go, kind of doesn't feel like my amp anymore. So this gives you a lot of power to cater that feel and response, which is really nice. I've been totally going full shred mode on all of these with lots of gain and this 80s style sound. I'm gonna grab my Marshall JTM 45, which doesn't have an effects loop, so I can add effects to that, and I'll try it with a different speaker IR. All right, JTM 45 is up. I've got my YJM Strat. At the moment, I've got an Own Hammer Greenback Impulse. I've also got another rig set up, which I'm gonna switch over to in a second with a Celestion Gold Impulse. So I'm going to tailor the resonance and presence for this particular IR, save it, and then swap over to the Gold Impulse and do the same thing there. At the moment, resonance and presence are at 0. I'll just play a little bit until I get the feel I like. That's cool, that's got the character I like. That is with the resonance high and the presence on high mid. If I hold down the little right button for 2 seconds, it's going to bake those settings into that particular rig. What I'll do now is I will switch over to rig 10, and this is with the Celestion Gold IR. I'm going to do the same process, start with them low, and then I will find the sweet spot. So in this case, I like the way that feels. That is with the low mid for resonance and also the low mid for presence. So this particular IR you can hear makes a huge difference on the total tone. This is way kind of slinkier and like, I would describe this sound as like sinewy. It reminds me of like a Vox or something like that. I'll add a bit of reverb to that guy and actually let's hear that. Cool, that's enough reverb. I'm going to write that one. And then I can go back and forth between this kind of voxy impulse. That's pretty awesome, and the feel there is definitely different between the two of them, let alone the tone. I mean, you may not be crazy about the tones I'm pulling, this is more about the functionality. The tone is so dependent on the IR there, but being able to dial in the feel is really, really nice. And we can add effects. So what I could do with this as well, you know, like I said, my JTM45 doesn't have an effects loop, so if I wanted to chuck some, let me scroll to a different preset, and we'll chuck it in, whatever. So I've got that delay after all the amp stuff, which is what I want. I want that kind of amp texture, as opposed to running a delay before the amp, which obviously sounds different. I've got the ability to have that EQ in there as well, which is really nice. There's also a compressor available to kick in, like if I just want to use the onboard WAZA delay. I could go in and add a compressor to that, like if I was using it with clean tones. I can dial in reverb. I'll show you some of the other rigs as well. These are the factory rigs. This is a greenback and a V30, and I've chosen the SM57 mic. And there's a big room, like room emulation on there. I'll go to the same cab, but with a 421 mic. I can try a V30 cab. This is actually an impulse that I made, so 10, 9, 8, 7. Furthermore, you can control all of these functions with the available foot switch, and there is the ability to change amp channels using the amp control, which I don't have set up at the moment, but it's super handy and it works a treat. So that's with the JTM45. Let's do one last demo of this with an amp. I'm going to use my Mesa Boogie dual rectifier, an old Rev G, and we'll get some thick high gain sounds with it. Okay, here's the recto. I've gone ahead and set up the amp control so that I can change channels. The first example you're going to hear is a rig setup with a Celestion V30 IR. The resonance and presence are set on their lowest settings. There is just a little bit of post EQ from the WAZA Tube Amp Expander, and then we're going to swap over to the next rig, which is a greenback IR. There is delay, there's EQ from the expander. I've used the amp control to change the channel from the red channel here to the orange channel. This is what it sounds like. That's only using the onboard IR loading and effects in this guy as well. I should have mentioned on the lead sound there, I had the low resonance turned up to the second setting, and I had the presence cranked all the way up, so it gives it a very different response. It's almost like playing two different amps, which is pretty cool if you've got a channel switching amp and you want to be able to go from like a rhythm to a lead sound, but also kind of cater the feel there to rhythm playing or to lead. In terms of things that I don't like about the Tube Amp Expander, I couldn't really find that many things about it. The software is really great in that it lets you load up your own IRs and tailor the effects. I guess the thing that I don't like is that you can only load 4 of your own custom IRs. It would be nice to be able to have all 10 rigs to have an IR assigned to them. I'm not sure if that's something that Boss could add in a future update, but being able to have at least 10 user IR slots on board would be really handy. That's probably the only thing that I don't like about it. It is expensive, it is big, it is heavy, but it's really well made. And if you consider the fact that it's not only a reactive load, it's a reactive load that does something that no other reactive load on the market does. It gives you those resonance and presence controls. It's a power amp, it's an IR loader, it's an effects processor. It lets you do USB audio, so it's a basic interface. It has MIDI. It has 10 storable rigs. You can load your own IRs. The delays and reverbs in there are the same delays and reverbs as the GT1000, which I think sound really good. You've got onboard EQ, so you can do tone shaping on board, send stuff to front of house, send stuff to a cabinet, you know, take a small amp, make it big, take a big amp, make it small. It's a pretty impressive product, and I think Boss are going to sell a lot of these units. So if you're somebody who is out there looking essentially for an all-in-one solution that can take your tube amp that you love and turn it into something that's far more flexible, more versatile, and easier to integrate into a modern rig, I can't think of anything else out there that does what the WAZA Tube Amp Expander does. It essentially takes its two biggest rivals, the Universal Audio Aux and the Fractal Power Station, and it does everything that both of those units do, as well as a few cool extra features on there. So like I said, this is the unit for you if you're looking for the all-in-one solution to all of these tube amp kind of woes. For me, I've already got a load box, I've already got a power amp, I've already got effects processors, so it's not something that I would need specifically in my rig. I normally play live with a digital modeler anyway, but if I was dead set on using an amp, just the form factor of the Tube Amp Expander would make it very, very attractive to me. So I would love to know what you guys think. Leave a comment. Be sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.